Here is I just wet my foot down in the shower, and then I set up a brown paper bag grocery sack, and you just plant your foot down on that, and it leaves an imprint, and you can analyze what type of arch you have. I have a relatively neutral arch. If we were looking at an imprint that filled in this whole area, you'd be looking at having a flat foot, which makes you over-pronate when you run. And then if this band along here was thinner, you would be considered having a high arch. And people with high arches generally don't pronate enough, so you would pick a shoe that's appropriate to either one of those conditions.
You may not be an elite marathon runner, but knowing your own body and your biomechanics will help reduce your risk of injury and help you improve your running performance. An example of this kind of analysis includes measuring your Q angle. So when you're measuring your Q angle, we could create it by two lines. This white line represents a point from your patellar tendon, where the patellar tendon meets the patella and runs straight up parallel to the femur, whereas the second red line also starts at that point on the knee and runs at a diagonal angle up to the superior anterior iliac spine, where the ilium meets the top of your upper quadricep muscle up on the edge of the pelvis by the hip.
So the Q angle really varies depending on the person, with female athletes generally having a higher Q angle because of their wider pelvis relative to the femur length. But I'll get my trusty purple protractor here, and if you measure that, you can see about at 20 degrees, which is pretty average. It could be as high as 25 degrees or as low as maybe 16. Obviously the lower the better, because you are reducing the amount of stress created on your knee joint when you pronate. And so people with higher Q angles generally would have to watch their level of pronation. They'd want to control that, and they'd also are more susceptible to knee injuries, but that could be corrected by...
Unlike Olympians Ryan Hall and Brian Sell, you might have a relatively high Q angle. But don't despair, because by doing strengthening exercises that target the vastus medialis, you could help reduce your risk of having knee problems, and therefore you will be able to increase your training volume.